First Things, episode number 27.
I seem to be lost.
And so you're working around the clock so you don't take time for yourself to feel like an actual human being.
I used to feel like no matter how hard I worked, I was just spinning my wheels.
Try to be perfect. We try to have everything in place at one point in time, and you can't.
Hello, friends, and welcome back to First Things, the podcast dedicated to practical productivity based on modern research. My name is Brandon Vaughn, and it's my goal to help you apply productive solutions to your life to help you live with less stress, greater passion, and amazing results. So great to have you back with me once again. And today we are talking through the very last chapter in Neil Fiore's book called The Now Habit. So we have been doing a multiple week study on the topic of procrastination, and we've really been digging this thing apart. And many of you have told me how much this has helped you and how much you appreciate that we've really dug into this topic quite a bit. And I'm very happy for that. I think I told you many weeks ago now that one of the things that I discovered when I took a break from the show is that I really wanted to spend more time digging into topics and really picking apart all of the different facets of a topic. Again, not to say that we won't do one-off type of studies like what I started doing in the podcast from the very beginning, but this is something that very much interests me, to really get into a lot of detail on something. And so we've done that with the topic of procrastination, and we're about to do that again, possibly either starting next week or in a few weeks from now, with the topic of assertiveness, and talk about the different facets of that as well. And today, in the last chapter of Neil's book, we are talking about how to deal with procrastinators in your life. So we've been talking all this time about how to deal with procrastination in your life, but now what about procrastinators that are in your life? So maybe you are a manager and you have people that work for you who are procrastinators. How can you help them? Maybe you live with somebody in your family that is a procrastinator. It's one thing to overcome it in your life, but how do you deal with it in people that are in your life that are procrastinators as well? Now, before we start up today, a couple of announcements for you. I have been talking through email with Neil Fiore about doing a possible interview. Thought that we had that completely lined up, and I'm hoping that it still comes about, but we've been trying to find a particular date to do that, and I haven't been able to get Neil in the last few days. I'm not sure if he's busy or had some obligations come up, but I'm hopeful that it may still take place. And if it does, I'm hopeful that it will take place by the time the next episode airs so that we can play that then. So keep your fingers crossed. I hope this will all come about and that we'll actually interview Neil about some of these topics. And if for some reason my schedule can't coincide with his, then we will do that at a later date, and we'll just keep pressing on into some of these topics of First Things. Second thing I wanted to ask you, and this is a favor I want to ask for those of you who listen to me on a regular basis, who are the biggest fans of the show. If you just like the show, you occasionally tune in, I'm very thankful for you. Thank you for being here today and listening to me, but don't feel obligated to do this. But if you are a big fan of the show and you really appreciate many of the things that I bring to the show and talk about, I want to ask that you consider doing something for me. There is a show that's on the internet called Creative Live. I don't know if you've ever seen it before. You can go to creativelive.com and see that what they do is offer free live teaching on a variety of topics, from business to photography to music to there's just a lot of things that are on there. And I love the model that they do. Of course, they're a business, so they're trying to make money, but they offer free live instruction. So anytime somebody gets on there and does an instruction over something, they will stream it live and anyone can tune in and watch it. And they'll usually have 2 to 3 day trainings over something. And then if you like the training or if you happen to miss it, you can always purchase it and watch it later whenever you want to. But I love that free aspect of it, that they offer free training so anyone can really watch and benefit from it. And then those who can afford it and who want to have access to it later can just purchase it. So my favor I want to ask of you is I would love to get on there and do some teaching over a couple of different topics. And if you're a fan of this show, I wanted to ask if you would consider writing them and asking that they contact me for potentially teaching on their show. And right now, there's two topics that I would have interest in teaching with them. One of them is over the very topic that we have spent all these weeks talking about. So if our 10 to 11 weeks of studies have really helped you in the area of procrastination, I would love to get on there and teach people via the video for free and to help more people with this. So I would love to get on there to do a topic over dealing with procrastination. I think it would really benefit a lot of people. And as well as you know, my background, if you've listened to my first episode, is in statistics, and I've done a lot of statistical analysis. I have degrees in statistics, and I would love to get on there and to do a 2 or 3 day workshop over statistics for the statistically challenged, to deal with business statistics and talk about practical things regarding statistics that people need in businesses. So would you consider going on there and recommending me? If you like me, if you like my show, if you think that maybe one of those topics would be great to give other people. So I've set up a special website to make it convenient for you to find the suggestion website. It's my website, firstthingsproductivity.com/YES for yes. Firstthingsproductivity.com/yes. And if you go to that website, it will take you to the Creative Live website, and it will ask you for a couple of things for this. It will ask you for my name, which is Brandon Vaughn. It will ask you for the topic, which would be in business. Both of these would fit into business. And then the topic, if you would consider suggesting me for at least one of these topics, or maybe both. I imagine if you did both topics that you might want to submit it twice in a row, but then have one of them that's about dealing with procrastination as one topic, and the other topic would be statistics or practical statistics for business, or statistics for the statistically challenged, or something like that. And for the website, just put my website, firstthingsproductivity.com, and then in the anything else that you should know box, maybe you could put something like if I've helped you any in these areas, especially maybe with the procrastination one, or anything about my teaching or my teaching style. And if you could do that, I would greatly appreciate it. Because again, this isn't about making money. I'm not even sure if they would pay me or how much they would pay me for doing something like that. I just love the model that it's free. But as I started getting into college teaching, I grew so disgusted by the greed that was in colleges in terms of tuitions, and also the book companies that would charge hundreds of dollars for books. And I really have pushed myself to offer things for free as much as I can. And this is why I'm here doing this show. I love doing things for free, and I love that I'm doing something and putting out information that can help people, and it doesn't cost them anything. So you can tune in at your convenience and listen to this. And I love this model for this group of them giving free live teaching. So if you could do that, and if you feel like it's something you would love to do, then I would love for you to do that. And again, if you don't want to, then don't. It's no big deal, okay? But I wanted to reach out to any of you who are big fans of the show and ask you to do that. And by the way, I'm not going to ask you every single episode to do this, because I've already wasted a few minutes of the episode talking about this very thing. But I will remind you maybe next week about this, and just something I would love to be able to do and to help people more. Okay, so enough of all of that. Let's get into our main topic, our finishing up our study over procrastination. So we're talking about how to deal with people in your life who are suffering from procrastination. Now, one key of all of this is you've learned throughout these last weeks why people procrastinate, why you procrastinate, why I procrastinate. And we want to basically take those principles now and apply it to other people. So what are some of the principles we've learned? We've learned that procrastination really isn't our problem. It's a reaction to our problem. So we're dealing with stress, or we're dealing with fear of failure or perfectionism. We're dealing with all these types of pressures in our life, and this is how we react to it. We procrastinate. We've learned that guilt-free play is a very essential secret that we need to overcome procrastination. We've learned that you've got to get started doing things and quit worrying about finishing, quit worrying about having the perfect start to something, but just start moving and start doing things. So how do we apply this now to dealing with other people? Well, in the book, Neil quotes from two researchers, two psychologists, from a book called Procrastination, Why You Do It and What to Do About It, Jane Burka and Lenora Ewan. And this is what they state. In all your interactions with procrastinators, try to function as a consultant and not as a director. In other words, offer your support, be a sounding board, and help procrastinators be realistic, but don't try to decide things for them or judge their moral character. So this is the basic theme of how we want to approach procrastinators in our lives. We don't want to try to change them. We don't want to give the impression that we're trying to change them. We don't want to nag them and complain and belittle them. Remember that for you, for me, for them, procrastination is their own worst enemy. It is their own dictator in their lives. Those negative, stinking thinking thoughts are controlling people. It is a dictator in their life, and they don't need you to be a dictator in their life. Because what's going on in people's heads that are procrastinating, they're thinking, I have to finish something very important, and I have to do it perfectly while enduring long periods of isolation from things that are fun and from people that I love and things that I love. That's going on in people's heads. They don't need you to add to that. You don't need people to add to your life that. And we've been pushing out those negative thinking and negative thoughts in these last few weeks and talking about procrastination. So we don't want to do that to other people. We've got to avoid that kind of language. We have to avoid the language of perfectionism, that we're expecting someone else to do something without any mistakes whatsoever. So you need to learn the techniques that we have been talking about. Use those very techniques to counteract people's thoughts and how they are approaching their life. You've learned all these techniques for how to overcome procrastination, and I'm hoping you're putting them into practice and finding out they really do work and help out. Now, use those very techniques to go after some of the stinking thinking that people have in their own battles with procrastination. And these really revolve around three main areas. Again, where they feel like a victim, where they feel overwhelmed, where they fear failure. These are some of the big areas that people face, and you need to help counter those types of things. So Neil talks about some of the things that people do and how we counter that by how we approach them, and of being a consultant, not a dictator. So one of these areas is in terms of demanding compliance versus inviting commitment. And Neil gives a couple of examples here of what it sounds like when we are demanding compliance. Something like this: you'd better be finished by noon, or you have to get here on time or else, or you should do it exactly as I showed you, or I'm in charge, so just do as you're told. Now notice the language here. It is the language of should and ought, you must, you have to, and this robs people of their choice. It robs people of the excitement and the adventure in embracing the now moment. You need to give people the sense of power and control. Allow people to participate in decisions. I think I mentioned this a few weeks ago, and I still haven't researched it, and I should, but I once heard that Google, or certain parts of Google, asked their employees to devote a certain percentage of their time to projects that they themselves deem to be worthy of creativity and innovation and things that they think will help the business. 10% or a whole day of their week, they say, devote it to something that you are passionate about, something that will help our company grow, that will do innovative, creative things. Now, I don't know if that's necessarily true of what happens there or if it's just an urban legend, but even if it is, I think it's a great thing to do. And I would encourage any of you managers that are listening to me to consider doing that, to consider freeing up a little bit of time for your people to be responsible and to choose, that you're not always the one who chooses for them, but you let them choose where they can invest a small part of their time to something creative, to something that will make a difference, some project that isn't your push toward them. And I just think that's a fascinating, amazing idea, to encourage people to have choice, to have power. We talked about the importance of having choice and talking about that you always have choice. But granted, if you have an overwhelming boss, it's very hard to make those choices because it pushes you more toward the ultimatum of things, that either I choose to do this or I choose not to and potentially get fired from it. Well, what if you had a boss that was encouraging of choices and encouraging creativity and encouraging passion in people's lives? How great it would be to make choices under those circumstances. So if you are a boss or a manager, why not do this to your people and empower them toward creativity, empower them toward being the next Google or the next Apple or the next any innovative group like that? So instead of saying, you better be finished by noon, why not invite choice and commitment and say, what can you get to me in rough form by noon? See the difference in that? You better be finished by noon. Or what can you get to me in some rough form by noon? You're putting choice in their court. You're saying, what can you do? Instead of you better be doing this. No, what can you do? Even if it's rough, can you get me something by noon? And you're leaving it to them to help and come back with this. Instead of saying you have to get here on time or else, you can say, I've placed you in a responsible position and I'm depending on you to be here at 9 o'clock. Can you do this? Or what can we do about this? And give that over to them. Instead of saying, I'm in charge, so just do as you're told. Why not say something like, I have responsibility for this unit, but there are things I don't see, blind spots in my way of working, so I need your help in keeping me informed if I miss some things. Give people dignity, give people power, give people choice, and don't make all their decisions for them. Let them exert their creativity in the moment. And by the way, although in Neil's book he's mainly talking about business, these things still apply in family situations for children, if for parents, for spouses, for boyfriend, girlfriends, whatever the case may be, for friendships in general. This all applies at the same time. Don't take people's choices away from them. Empower them to be a collaborator in something. Even if you're in charge of it, allow them to contribute in some way. So not only do you want to move away from this demand of compliance to inviting choice, inviting commitment and creativity and passion, but you also want to keep people focused on starting and not finishing. Remember, this is one of the big secrets that we've learned is that we need to get started and quit worrying about finishing so much, quit worrying about having the perfect start. So when you talk to people, whether it be in your family or especially if you are in the workplace somewhere, well, here are some statements that are just focused on finishing. When will you finish this project? You've got to complete this by Friday. There's a lot to get done. Remember that deadline is only 2 months away. See, all of those statements are focused around finishing. It's all focused around the end state. And the end state is important, but you're never going to get there if you don't get people moving on something and get them started on it. So these are some things that Neil suggests to say instead. So instead of when will you finish this project, ask when can you start on a very rough draft. Notice the difference. Not when are you going to finish, when are you going to start on a very rough draft. You've got to complete this by Friday. Instead, say, I need this by next Friday, so plan to have a rough sketch to me in time for our meeting on Tuesday at 10 o'clock so we can go over it together. You're pushing start. You're pushing and saying, okay, there is this deadline, but what I want you focused on is starting it. That's where I want you to be focused on. This is what I want you to be thinking about. Instead of just saying, there's a lot to get done, say, would you draw up a rough agenda of the necessary steps for closing the Jones account and have it for me by 3 o'clock? Then we can set a realistic time frame for its completion. Much better, again, a focus on starting the whole thing. Or the last example that Neil gives, remember that deadline is only 2 months away. Well, instead, say this. If we're going to meet that deadline of 2 months on the Smith case, I'll need to see at least an outline by Friday. Do you need someone to take over your other responsibilities while you get started? So notice what you're doing. You're focusing again on starting, plus you're also giving them the freedom to devote more of their time to that by taking away some of their other responsibilities, and you're leaving it up to them to help you decide if that is the case, because they have now the choice of saying, yes, I really need some help here to be able to focus on this, or they can come back and say, no, I can handle all my other responsibilities and I should be able to give you that outline by Friday. That should be no problem for me. Dr. Leonard Salas, the professor of management at Columbia University, Neil quotes from in the book when he says that while most managers see themselves as decision makers and order givers, this is unrealistically passive view of what managers really have to do, since there can be serious problems in getting an order across to a subordinate. No matter how carefully phrased, many important orders require complex implementations. The boss must keep initiating and listening. While the order may be clear, it takes on real meaning only as the boss watches a number of subsidiary choices or trade-offs the subordinate makes and keeps nudging him or her toward the interpretation the boss intended when the order was given. The misinterpretations by the subordinate often have more to do with a failure to maintain a clear channel of communication with the boss rather than poor motivation on the part of the subordinate. So not only do we need to talk in a way where we are moving toward commitment and choice and away from demanding compliance, not only do we need to keep people focused on starting and not finishing, but the other thing that Neil suggests is we need to move away from criticism toward praise. Instead of focusing on the negative, we need to focus on the positive, or we need to focus on positive improvement in some ways. So here's some examples Neil gives of criticism. You can't do it right. What's wrong with you? Or this report is totally off the point. You'll never get it done this way. I once had a boss do that to me, that very thing. They would say, this just doesn't speak to me. And I would be like, well, what doesn't speak to me? Well, this isn't just what I wanted. This is kind of disappointing. It wasn't what I expected. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, what? Tell me what it is. And they didn't. It was just this negative comment. And I'm sitting there thinking, this wasn't all bad. You could have actually pointed out some of the things that I did good with this, but instead it's just kind of like the negative thing. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the Christmas Vacation with Chevy Chase. And in the movie, his father-in-law, he's trying to set the lights in his house to blink, and they can't blink. And then finally he does, and then he's going around sharing this moment with his family and how great it is, and they're hugging each other. And then he comes up to his father-in-law, and his father-in-law says, well, the lights aren't blinking. In fact, well, listen to this quote. I mean, this is straight from the movie.
Art, Dad, thanks for being here. The little lights are not twinkling. I know, Art, and thanks for noticing.
And I just love that quote from the movie. And this reminds me of some of the bosses I've actually worked for in my life in the past, of that they're just negative. And all they can do is just focus on the negative. And so, well, you didn't do this right, or you didn't do this, or I'm just not happy with this, or I'm disappointed. And we need to move away from that to at least some type of praise toward people of what they did, or maybe praise them and offer improvement suggestions at the same time. It works wonders for people. So Neil suggests some things like this for praise. I really liked what you did with the Jones account, or the write-up was clear and concise, or you maintained good follow-through on the phone with Mr. Jones, or you did a good job handling the customer service problems. Now, if you are going to do some praise, I would suggest that you do it in writing. It's a very extra boost for people. So instead of just saying something to a person, maybe email them and then copy the team on it and say, I just wanted to call out something that Barbara did that was just excellent, and good job, Barbara, and praise them and let other people in on that, or acknowledge them in front of a meeting. If you have a staff meeting, just say, I want to give a special award for this. If you don't have awards, in your organization, or just do something. Give them a certificate. Go down to Office Depot and buy just a pack of certificates and just start giving them out every few weeks or months or what have you. It goes a long way. People really do appreciate that when they feel special and prized and feel like their work is actually acknowledged. Now, here's some examples that Neil gives for things that need improvement, and this is how he would suggest doing it. So here's one suggestion. I really liked what you did with the Jones account, and I think you can achieve even better results and avoid some tension on your next project if you follow the usual deadlines for informing the central office. So notice what there is. There's a praise there. I really liked what you did, but here's something that you may do next time that'll make it even better. Here's another one. Your write-up was terrific. It was clear, it was concise, it was on target, and with some minor work on that last section, it's going to be excellent. So you notice we have some praise there. Now we have this improvement, and we're giving motivation for it. Here's another one. You maintain good follow-through on the phone with Mr. Jones, and I'd like you to really cement that contact by a personal visit to his plant. Next time when you're assigned a new account, set up a site visit as soon as possible. Or the last one that Neil gives, you did a good job handling the customer service problems, and I'd like to see if more can be done to prevent those complaints. And I tell you, I love being around people that are like that. I once had one boss in my life, and it was a superb boss. And unfortunately, I didn't have this person for very long before they moved over into another position. But this person was amazing at just making you feel good about things, even if it wasn't good news. This guy was just amazing at that. I literally imagine many times that he could be sitting there telling me, the economy has just gone belly up, and we're about to go into this deep, dark depression. And just the way he would tell it to me would make it sound like, wow, that's awesome. Tell me again. Because he just had that knack about him that was very personable, very friendly. He knew his people. He asked about their lives, and he was genuinely interested in them. And if he had criticism, he would do things like this. He would say, when you did this, it was really great, and you did such a good job with that. One thing that I would tweak, though, is this. I would do this differently, and you would do a much better job next time with that. And this is where I want you to focus on for next time. And you would just go away feeling like $1,000,000. You would feel like, okay, I didn't do a perfect job, but he acknowledged that I did a good job on this, and this is how I could even make it better the next time. And he's not just my boss, but he's like a coach. It's like he's the coach of the team, and I'm his quarterback, and he's saying, you misread that play this time, and that's what caused you to do this interception, but I want you to go back out there because I know you can score a touchdown this next go around. And I love coaches for bosses rather than dictators for bosses. How about you? Now, this is not in the book at all. Neil doesn't mention this, but I would also, as a boss, as a manager, as a coworker, as a spouse, or even with kids or anything like that, I would also push the emphasis on recreation and play and make sure that people are doing that. So I've actually done that with coworkers many times when I've seen them stressed out, and I would not condemn them. I would not act the dictator in their life, but I would say, I remember a time when I was very stressed out about something, and I realized I needed to have recreation in my life. And I would tell them my story. And many times I'm telling them the story not to say you should do this. So I'm phrasing it in such a way that I'm not condemning them or acting like you should be doing what I tell you to do, but more almost like telling my story, my journey, and say, I really understand that stress. And it's the funny thing, when I faced this stress that last time, I realized I wasn't taking time off for myself. And then if they seem open to talking about it, then maybe I start asking them questions like, what about you? Do you take time off for yourself? Do you have guilt-free play? Do you actually make it a priority in your life? And if they say no and they seem inviting, then we talk about it some more. And I say, well, this really made a difference in my life. You should try it sometime because I think it would, this is the type of thing you want to be, is more of a consultant again, not a dictator. And if you have people that you're equals with, coworkers, spouses, if people that you are friends with, you should do this type of thing. And if you are a boss or a manager, I would encourage you to be some radical about this and actually push people toward this. So, for example, I had a boss at one time who was opposite of this other person that I was telling you about just a few minutes ago. And they would tell me stuff like, well, you've got a vacation coming up, and I don't want to ask you to work on this. But if you did, and to me, I wanted a boss more like the other person who would say, I don't want you working on this on vacation. Unplug from this. Do not answer your work email. I would love to have a boss that actually tells me that. Do not answer your work email over the weekend. I do not want to see you replying to any messages. You need to take time off for yourself. You need to get some good rest. You need to spend it with your friends and family. Have some fun. And when you come back in on Monday, you tell me all the great things you did over the weekend. I want to know about it. I want to know that you are exercising. I want to know that you're eating well. I want to know that you have some vacation plans and that you are actually using that. I do not want to see, I would love to see that. I would encourage any of you managers to do that, to be radical enough that you will say, I'm going to put my employees' health, their emotional well-being front and center in my managing style, and I want to make sure that they are scheduling time away and getting into recreation and getting into play and getting into leisure and getting into rest. And I'm going to, as much as I can for what human resources will allow me to, I want to really make sure that they are doing this, and it's going to be a priority for me. And maybe you even get more radical and do like what Google is doing and allow them to have a little bit of their time, not all of their time, but a little bit of their time to flex it and do new and creative stuff that isn't of your origin, that you aren't pushing on them. No, they create it from the very get-go, and they come back to you and say, this is what I decide I want to spend a little bit of time doing, and you say, go for it, and you give them that opportunity to do that. It will, I think, radically transform your business if you set people free to do that type of stuff. Now, if you live with someone specifically, then give them choices, but don't feel like you have to placate them. So if you have a person who is procrastinating all the time when you want to go somewhere, to go to a movie or to theater or dinner or something, well, you can give them that choice, but you don't have to deter your life in some way. So you can say, I'm leaving at 6:00 for the concert, and we said we're going to go, but I'm not going to wait for you, and I'm not mad at you. I'm not upset with you, but we need to leave by 6:00, and I'm going to be in the car. I'm going to be ready, and if you're not there, I'm just going to go. And you have to give people those choices where they can choose to be on time and not to procrastinate over something. But in the book, and I don't want to go into a lot of the stuff he talks about with the family, but because a lot of the principles, I think, apply what we've already been talking about. But he has a whole end of the chapter devoted to just talking about examples of a married couple and of family members and how you can deal with that maybe more specifically in terms of procrastination. But again, it's not very different than what we've already talked about. He gives more actual examples of people rather than specific techniques in those cases. And I would just encourage you to read through the book and to pick up, some of the examples that he talks about in that particular thing. The main thing, though, is to just, again, remember that procrastination is not the problem. So if you have a spouse or a girlfriend, boyfriend, a child, a friend, a coworker, if your boss does this, if your employees do this, procrastination isn't really the problem. It's a reaction to a problem. So your job is to try to figure out what that problem is. And then if you can, speak into their lives and help them overcome that. Maybe it's gradually. Maybe tell them to listen to this podcast. I know I say this and it sounds like, yeah, you're just promoting your podcast, but honestly, I'm doing this because it's helping me and I want to help other people. And so if you're listening to this, and even if it's years from now, when you're actually pulling up this episode and listening to it, and if it's resonating with you, then why not make it part of your staff for the next 2 months and say, we're going to talk about this in our staff. And I want you to go listen to this podcast episode over procrastination and then come back and share your thoughts about it and what can we do about procrastination in our own lives and in our business. I think that would be an awesome use of staff meetings. In fact, I quite become bored with most meetings because I think most meetings are just a waste of time. I think many meetings are too long. They should never go over 30 minutes. And I think that in most businesses, that half of the meeting shouldn't even be taking place in the first place. I think meetings, for the most part, are kind of a waste of time. And to me, I would thrill at the opportunity to have a staff meeting where we talked about procrastination issues over a month or 2 months. If somebody had said to me, there's a podcast like this, and they said, go listen to this, and we're going to talk about this, and I value you as a person on my team, and I know this is going to help you as a person, and in the end, it's also going to help our business. So I want you to go through this, I want you to learn this, and let's talk about this, and let's put some action steps to this. I think that's awesome, and I would definitely encourage you to do that. Same with family members and different people like that. Okay, well, after saying all of that, that wraps up this episode on dealing with people who procrastinate and also wraps up our series over the topic of procrastination. And I hope that you've enjoyed this series on procrastination. I hope that you haven't been procrastinating over dealing with your procrastination. I hope that you've been putting in to play many of the techniques that we've been talking about over the last few weeks. I've learned a lot. I haven't mentioned anything about my songs because I'm in the middle of recording my songs right now and just trying to get that. Probably a little bit behind schedule from recording it, but I have just written so many songs and just gone overboard with my original goal. But now my goal is to still try to have a lot of these recorded by the end of February, and then hopefully in March, finish up recording and mixing them and getting them ready to put out. So anyway, not to get back onto that whole example again, but just to say I've learned a lot, and I thought I already knew quite a bit about procrastination, putting a lot of these techniques into place, and yet one of the most stubborn areas of my life I've overcome using these very things that we've been talking about. And I hope that you've been doing this and seeing some success in your life as well. Hopefully next week, if Neil and I can coordinate our schedules, if I can get in touch with him again, then we'll have an interview with Neil himself. And again, if not, then we will keep moving forward. I mentioned also Timothy Moser, who has a Ace Productivity podcast, and hoping I can talk to him in the next few days. And he's going to interview me for his show, and I'm also going to interview him for mine and talk about some of the areas of experimenting with your life and why that's very important. Also, remember the Creative Live, the firstthingsproductivity.com/yes. If you might consider going on there and mentioning me to them as a possible instructor for a course, maybe over procrastination or over statistics. And if you might consider doing one or both of those as a recommendation, I would greatly appreciate that. Our next study is going to be over the area of assertiveness and how to say no to things in life, how you can say no to criticism and guilt and manipulation and conflict and all these types of things. How can you stand up for things, and how do you deal with those things when they come into your life? And I want to really break that apart now and talk about that in much more detail. there are 2 resources I would suggest that you pick up for that. And one of these is one that we're really going to focus on more in the next weeks. It's called the Assertiveness Workbook. And that is definitely one I would suggest that you pick up. We're actually going to go through that. And I'm also going to be referencing at times another book called When I Say No, I Feel Guilty. And I will provide links for both of those books in the show notes. I would encourage that you pick them up as extra study. You don't need them, again, for us to talk about them in this podcast. I'm going to, again, teach on these topics in such a way that you don't need anything like that. But I would definitely encourage that you consider picking them up for extra study material. I think it would greatly benefit you. As always, please consider leaving me a rating and comment on whatever you're listening to me by, whether that be Stitcher or Zune or BlackBerry or iTunes. It just helps greatly in letting others know about this show. I've had many of you starting to leave me comments on my blog site, firstthingsproductivity.com/27, if you want to comment about this particular episode. And I've been doing a lot better about getting back and replying to people on time. I had quite a few comments left for me over the winter break time, and that was also time that I kind of got sick, so I got behind on responding to quite a few people, and I really hated that. I'm trying to get a lot better about that, and I really appreciate you leaving me comments and insights on there. So please feel free to do that on any of the episodes. And also trying to beef up the website a little bit, maybe have some type of email newsletter or trainings or different things like that that I'll be trying to do over the next few weeks, so that if you are a real big fan of the show and you want to get some notices on things that I put out, either with training materials or new podcast episodes or anything like that, that I could actually let you know by email as well, so that you know when new things are actually available. So until next time, remember this: embrace the now habit. Focus on guilt-free play. Push yourself to focus on starting, not finishing. Don't settle for "I'll try" or "this isn't working." It will work for you, but you may fail more often than you succeed at first. Don't give up. This is not so much about the now decision as it is about the now habit, and any habit takes some time to develop. So embrace today with passion and intention, and don't die with your music still inside you.